what I do is I focus on plaintiffs, or rather employment law and labor law and business law I represent small to mid-sized businesses. So I represent business owners, employers in all industries, so I'm industry agnostic, and it could be retail, hospitality, tech, professional services. And basically what I do for these companies and these business owners is I handle their defense, right? The company gets a lawsuit served on them, or they get a letter in the mail from the Department of Labor that says there's an investigation. I defend them in court, arbitration and hearings. I also counsel these companies basically in a more proactive way, right, Mark and Milton? It's in terms of how do you follow all the different federal, state, and city employment laws out there, especially now with all the COVID-19 mandates. So I basically handle defense, compliance, consulting, and then the contracts, right? The business law, transactions, drafting all those fun employee handbooks and employment contracts that I actually do find it fun to draft and revise those documents. And that's what I do for businesses. I've been doing it since about 2001 on my own, and I started practicing back in early '99. So it's been one day at a time. It's been flowing pretty nicely.
So you're the guy that is enjoying writing employee handbooks. There's one guy in the country that enjoys doing that. It must be you.
That would be me, yeah.
Yes, we found him.
I actually like to joke about that too, because it's like, companies sometimes cringe at the idea of going over these aspects and items, or even just learning and following up on all the different labor law mandates. And I have to say, Mark, some people love surgery, right? I had a surgeon once when I hurt my arm years ago. He was so fascinated to tell me about the procedure. He videotaped it and invited me to watch the tape, the video of him basically repairing my arm. I had zero interest in that. I didn't want to know the blood and guts. I just wanted him to fix my arm. And but he loved that. And so I'm grateful that he loved that, because I sure as heck don't. So it's always nice when someone can turn to me and say, if this is what you enjoy doing, you do it for a company. And it's interactive, but the main sort of nuts and bolts is what I take care of for my clients.
Cool.
Fair enough. It's clear to me that you're really passionate about what you do. And, but let's just say, for instance, I have my small business and I run into a problem, there's some litigation coming, and I go through, I Google business attorneys, and your name pops up, but you're on the page with 10 other guys.
Yeah.
What is it about the Eric Sarver law firm that people should know, and why would I choose you over some of those other options?
Yeah, it's a good question, Milton. Well, I think, three reasons I could think of off the bat in terms of why you would choose the law office of Eric M. Sarver in that scenario, why you choose me, is one of the points you just made a moment ago that I was just speaking about, reflecting about, which is I genuinely love the law. I really do love employment law. I like to parse out the issues. There's a human aspect that I find very interesting. It's not all statutes and legislation. There's actually a human drama component to it. It has some creativity. So I would say one thing that distinguishes me is this is not just a business or paycheck transaction. This is something I enjoy doing, and that carries over to how much attention I give to my clients, which I think would be point number two, that when you hire my firm for your employment law needs, I'm very attentive to my clients' needs, right? So it's your legal needs and also your questions, right? Your calls, your emails, because I know how this can be very stressful for clients, and they want to know that things are okay, and they want me to sort of reassure them. So I walk them through the process as much or as little as they want to be walked through it. And then the final thing I would just say, which comes to mind, is that with my firm, there's a focus on the big picture. It's even one of the reasons why I pivoted my firm a little bit from the employee side to the employer, because the employees would come to me for a lawsuit, it'd be a one and done deal, and they'd go on their merry way. But with the employer, I can work with them. It's a relationship, and I can help them repair and fix whatever issues they're facing. But it's not a one and done deal. I get to work with them and look at the big picture and help their company to grow. So those are the three things that I would say in terms of why you would scroll down to me when you Google employment law attorney, New York State.
Eric, cool. That's great stuff. You mentioned a couple times throughout that answer to Milt about people and about the organization and about the fact that it's not really all about the legal aspects of it. It's really about the human element. On Team Talk, we really focus on culture in an organization and the importance of having an inclusive, diverse culture with voices coming from all aspects. How do you, as an attorney, how do you help organizations understand that aspect of their business, the human side of it, and build that cohesive culture that they can, take over or build over generations?
It's a great question, Mark. And I know it's something I think you and I once discussed months ago in terms of our respective work we do. But what I would say, what I do is I do three things that come to mind. One is that I encourage the company, my clients, in building an inclusive culture to define the process, right? What does inclusion look like for you as a company? We talk about certain groups, we talk about protection and inclusivity for people based on national origin, religion, race, across age and generations, ethnicity, able-bodied, disabled, or other abled folks, etc. But basically what I would say is that you have to really define the process. And it also, inclusivity in my mind, right, means like having a uniform message. This is me taking off my employment law cap for a moment, putting on my business law, my business cap, and saying, let's have a message and a goal and a mission that everyone in the company can line up behind. I think that's one important thing that I would say. And then, another way that I counsel my clients to build inclusivity is, again, I am an employment lawyer. It's my stock and trade. So I do encourage them to look at inclusivity from a legal perspective, right? Why should you do this? What are some of the employment law reasons, I'll say, right? If you have a company that's not inclusive enough, you can increase your chances of having negative consequences. And what I mean by that, I mean things such as employment discrimination lawsuits, I mean bad publicity and bad press, implicit bias draining employees' morale. So I really encourage my employers, my clients to look at things from a legal perspective, right, to define what inclusion means to them. And last but not least, I encourage my clients who are employers, let's invite your employees into this process, right? I can't stress that enough. I think too often employers think, okay, this is my job to build this inclusive company culture, and then I'm going to announce it to the employees. And what I say is that employees can help you, guide you in this process, right? They know what they need in terms of social, professional, and other connection. They know what areas they might need and might want to see the company have. So if you do inclusivity with me and I help you through some of the diversity training, you've got yourself protected, in my opinion, from the legal point of view and hopefully from a business perspective as well.
That's a great answer. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I heard you repeat over and over and over and over again in your answer to Mark is inclusivity, inclusive culture. That was obviously a theme that was running through that entire answer. And if you wouldn't mind, and you just expand on that a little bit, and really share with our audience, what do you see as being the benefits of an inclusive culture within organizations?
It's funny. I think I definitely repeated the inclusivity point. I think because it was just such an important point to make, but I think you picked that up wisely, Milton, in terms of what I was saying there. So what are some of the benefits? Well, I think one benefit is, again, the reduction of liability, right? The reducing of your risk of being sued. What I found, Milton, in my years of practice is that sometimes employees may not have a legal claim for discrimination, but they might truly believe they do. And sometimes a disgruntled employee who felt as if their company never included them, never spoke with them, never communicated much, will conclude that discrimination was an issue and they might sue. Whereas if that employee felt included and felt open to having conversations, they may have talked to their employer and learned that maybe some other causes at play. Now, I want to be clear in the answer. I'm not saying that there aren't very valid cases of discrimination out there that employees face. To be very clear, that happens and it's wrong. I've seen it a lot. But one benefit is you have an inclusive culture, you have communication, you reduce the chance of misunderstanding. And number two, I'd say, is that you build morale. Like everything I think of Milton, in terms of where's the carrot and where's the stick in terms of the approach, right? If it's just, hey, you need to build an inclusive culture so you don't get sued possibly, or you reduce the chance of a lawsuit, well, that's a negative motivation. But if we say, hey, you can get your employees really excited and enthusiastic and they want to help their clients and customers, that comes out when a customer walks into their store or business. So those are the benefits, I think, of an inclusive culture.
The perspective for us on Team Talk is that, Milton and I have interviewed a number of people in HR and DE&I and consulting and C-level executives, but I don't think we've had, over a year, we've had anyone on the show that's looking at the legal side of this or the law side of employment. So different perspective. As Milton likes to say, you could see the passion coming through when we're talking to you, even via Zoom. Where does all that come from, Eric? Why do you love what you do so much?
Yeah, it's a fair question I've gotten from people over the years, including clients and colleagues. And, Mark and Milton, I'd really say that there are three things that come to mind. I tend to answer questions in threes. I just think it's just the top three things, what comes to my mind without thinking too much. And one I say is just that I enjoy the challenge. I like the creativity. Some people love to do like really complex puzzles with 10,000 pieces, and others may enjoy the challenge of, say, fixing a car. To me, the challenge of sort of creatively interpreting situations, solving problems. Employment law, in my opinion, is about two things. Solving a problem, right? The business owner has an unhappy employee, a breach of a non-compete, an overtime issue, a problem with paid leave, is solving a problem, but also, right, creatively building things and changing things so that the employer will have fewer problems going forward. So it's proactive and reactive. And I like that has the challenge, that some creativity and some human drama. There's always a story in employment law. I think that's why I gravitated towards that. I'm an extrovert. I enjoy people, and I like seeing how people work and interact in conflict. So I would say that's the main reason that I'm passionate about what I do. I think there's also satisfaction for me in resolving disputes. I do litigate, I do defend companies and clients in court, but very often cases settle, and very often cases go to mediation first. And there's a certain satisfaction I get just seeing the relief. I like to think that I'm helping my clients to get that sense of relief. They've been through stress with this litigation or this case. And so that's, I think, another reason why I'm passionate about what I do. It's just resolving conflict, it's breaking down complex issues, and the human aspect that my clients know when they're interacting with me, I'm not approaching it like a robot. That's just an encyclopedia of knowledge around these issues. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely comes through. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good
Absolutely
stuff.
does. Thank you so much for sharing with us so much. And we've talked a lot about the type of things that you do, how you interact with your clients, and all that kind of good stuff. I'd like for you to, if at all possible, share with us and our viewers a case study that where we show where you're able to bring all of these things that you're so passionate about to bear.
Sure thing, Milton. First I will preface my answer. You remember on all those TV shows, and they would say in the beginning the names and the characters and places have been changed to protect the innocent, right, and the guilty.
We got it.
I'm going to say, for attorney-client privilege and all that, like confidentiality, I'm not going to name their client or give too many details, but I will give a good case study.
Sure.
I had a client a few years ago. Actually, a client called me up 6 years ago. They said, I'm starting a business and I want to get some perspective and help here. They were starting a small restaurant chain. One restaurant became two, became four. And so they didn't quite take the consultation. They did it on their own, which is, I understand where they were coming from, but they came back to me in 2.5 years with, it was a problem from the Department of Labor. It was a whole quagmire of issues around how they paid overtime, not knowing about tip sharing, and not knowing about certain documents, I'll say, you have to give your employees when you hire them. So they were in a whole heap of trouble. So I helped them, I defended them in that situation, that case, and got them on the right track. And then they came to me with a workers' compensation issue, right? They didn't have the right coverage and they were getting penalties. So I worked with them on that. And I invited them to sit down with me and say, let's just meet for like a full day. Just give me the day, you and I in the conference room, or 2 half days, and let's just go over all your issues across the board. How can we get things set up for you? And at first, I saw them very hesitant. Well, I'm really busy. I don't have that time to spare. And I said, okay. So I continued along the lines of defending them when problems arose. And I said, listen, my door's always open. If you want to talk, you want to schedule a proactive session, I call it, just give me a call. And then I started to see their change, their attitude, where the more issues that they had, the more they realized that all this employment law and all these business law problems, breach of contracts and vendors, was getting in the way of what they were passionate about, right? Which was, their restaurant and bringing food to people. So I worked with them. Eventually, we got to the point where they were ready to really grow, and they just wanted me to help them with compliance. And we spent a period of time just getting them in order. And I'm happy to say in the last 2.5 years, we've only had one issue, which came up during COVID, and really wasn't, frankly, their fault. But the reason I mentioned that case study is because, in my mind, that's true success. It's a company not just making the same mistake over and over again in different forms, right? But it's taking advantage of the whole process that my firm offers, right? Let's fix the problems. Let's look at the leaky ceiling, look at the leaky faucet, look at the issue, but let's also look at the foundation, the structure, right? If you keep getting leaks in your faucet, or the water pressure is not right, maybe you need to look at the whole structure, the whole sink and everything, how it works. So I just felt that it was great, and to see the client really change, and it allowed them to open another restaurant, which unfortunately with COVID became an issue. But the point is, because they were so focused on the restaurant, not their legal challenges, because they got help in the proactive part, they were able to really go forward successfully. And that made me feel really good about the work that I do.
That's great. That's a
Yeah,
good. That's a hell of a story.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah, that was great. Hey, Eric, where do you find new clients? How does that? How do you uncover an opportunity? Are you out? Most professionals in the legal industry or accounting industry don't go out and knock on doors. But I would imagine at this point, after 20 plus years, it's a lot of it's reputation, right?
That's right, Mark. That's right. I mainly find clients through former clients and existing clients now who recommend their colleagues and their friends and their family. I find clients through colleagues such as yourself, people who just yesterday, one of my colleagues in HR wrote to me and said, "Hey, Eric, I have a client who might need help with some COVID-19 restrictions in New York City, the vaccine mandates. Can you help them with that?" So I find clients through colleagues, through connections, through networking. I really can't speak highly enough about networking and just going there to meet and connect with other people in your field and other fields. And also just word of mouth, and from speaking at TV shows. I have a weekly talk radio show live on Tuesday evenings at 5 p.m. on Talk Radio NYC. It's called Employment Law Today. That's really how I find clients. I don't do billboards, right? I get contacted by marketers saying, "Hey, let's put you on, Google's #1 search engine, search page." And I do use social media, of course, and have a website. It's just not how I don't do the mass client thing. Right? I'm not looking for 20,000 hits. I'm looking for quality.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I mean, the podcast is great. I've been on the podcast, and employment law, it was great. And those networking groups, Eric, are really they're very helpful, because in your case, there's on those networking groups, I haven't seen any other employment lawyers out there, so that's been good. Listen, before Milton, we're coming down to the close, but I've got one more question before Milton asks his.
Sure.
What advice would you give to a younger attorney as he or she was coming up in employment law? What to look for? What obstacles they might run into, et cetera. Because you're so passionate, you're almost like an adjunct professor out there, Eric, talking to people about how passionate you are about employment law. What would you say to someone new?
Well, thank you for that, Mark. I just need to get some patches on my sleeves, and I'll be officially the professor type look. Of some advice I would give to up-and-coming employment lawyers, I would say first, ask questions of your experienced colleagues. When I first started my firm 20 years ago, I didn't know what I didn't know. And in the beginning, I let myself ask questions, and then I got to a point about 15, 16 years ago where I thought I should know all this, and I stopped asking questions. What I've learned is seek out mentors, seek out guides, seek out people. I had a young employment lawyer do that about 5 years ago, and I helped him, and he worked for me a little bit, and I taught him things, and then now he's my adversary in a case. We resolved the case. We settled it last week, but I saw his demand letter. I said, "Oh, I helped form this. He's using my." So I would say that reach out to mentors. Also, I recommend that you keep up with employment law updates. There are some great resources for that. Mark, there's Employment Law 360. I read about, I'd say, 20 to 30 minutes of employment law updates. I try to read every day, sometimes every maybe 4 days a week, just to get a sense of what's going on in the news. And last thing is just keep on trying, and keep reevaluating, because it gets rocky, it gets bumpy. We've all had our ups and downs, and just hang in there. And that's my advice to a young
Awesome.
or
Love it.
upcoming lawyer.
Okay, fantastic. We always have one question we ask at the end of the show. We're at that moment now, and I'm always really interested in what inspires people. Where do they come from? Was there a person? Was there a place? Was there an event or thing that made you say, "Hey, you know what? I need to be an attorney, and I want to specialize in business law"? Was there something that happened, or what inspires you the most?
Yeah. Well, I'd say like that probably in as a young child, I saw different relatives who were attorneys, some uncles, some cousins, and I started watching certain TV shows with law, and it just seemed very interesting to me. I think I was inspired by first Milton, by what I thought the law was, which was all excitement and glam and just a lot of thrill and adventure, and zero mundane task. And then I realized it's not actually how it is. But then I think in law school, when I got older, more mature, right, my mind and experience developed, I'd say that professors inspired me to choose employment law because of all the issues that you get to deal with. I mentioned before that whole creativity, the problem solving, just the changes that happen. Employment law changes all the time. It's not just the same rules that are just recycled. But I would say that's kind of what inspired me in terms of to enter this field. And then I have two inspirations right now. I mean, I have many, but my clients inspire me, frankly. My clients, their happiness always keeps me going. But I would end with two inspirations that I would also share, if I may. Have some props for this question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. So Exhibit A is like my wonderful wife, Sarah. That's our wedding picture. You can tell it was a while back, just from the just how we look and such. But this is our wedding, and that would be Exhibit A. My wife Sarah definitely inspires me and to keep going, even when things get challenging, whether it's COVID or otherwise. And then Exhibit B is like this little guy. In fact, if I'm having a hard day, I'll often keep a picture of my son, maybe not this size, but a picture of my son Nathan on my desk. This is an older picture. He's actually 2 now. He's 2 years old. That was, I think, taken last summer. But he's just this bundle of light and joy, and he keeps me going even if I'm having a challenging week. So that'd be my inspiration, I'd say, to keep at this.
Eric, it's been great. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. If you could just tell us how to get in touch with you, that would be great. Milton and I really appreciate your time today.
Yep,
Sure thing,
absolutely.
Mark. Sure thing, Milton. Thank you guys both, Milton, so much, and Mark. How to get in touch with me? Eric Sarver at the law office of Eric M. Sarver. You can reach me by either calling directly at 917-930-8684. It's 917-930-8684. Or you can go to my website, www.sarver-law, sarver-law.com. And you'll see my email address, like my office address in New York City, my email, fax, etc. So reach out to me anytime. Again, that's sarver-law.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great.
Fantastic.
Eric, thanks so much. Appreciate your time today. It was wonderful.
It was great here. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Milton.
You're welcome.
Real pleasure.